Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Leadership Void podcast. I'm Enrique with my co-host Vince to bring you the best in our veteran, military spouse, and first responder community. And Vince will introduce today's guest.
Thanks, Enrique. Again, going strong in Women's History Month, we have Ann Cardona. She does a lot of great things, but she is also known from the founder and owner of Little Fishies Swim School from Wilmington, North Carolina. So, Ann, welcome to the show. Start off, tell us a little bit about you.
Thanks so much, Vincent and Enrique. So I am a 9-year Army veteran. I was a Division I runner and swimmer at West Point at the Military Academy. So sorry for any Navy fans out there. And I ended up starting out my own swim school about 2 years ago. So it'll be 2 years in June. I held a couple different leadership positions after the military and got a taste for what civilian life was like. Never thought I'd end up in entrepreneurship, but eventually I just got pulled into it anyway. So here I am.
Well, it's hard not to with an entrepreneur spouse, right? But it runs in the blood, and it's so nice to see that military service as well, right? You Army, well, I know Marine Corps is in there as well in your household. So thank you both for your service and all that you do. Now, swimming is usually not the thing that we usually go into after service, but it's something that you're passionate about, you were great at. So tell us about Little Fishies Swim School.
Yes. So as you said, my husband is also an entrepreneur. He's a Marine veteran. So we did have a little, I will say he cheers for Army Navy game. So we have that. But I do get a lot of stuff about Marine Corps being better than Army from time to time. So he decided to start his own business. And I saw the struggles and I said, there's no way that I'm going to do that. And there's no way that we can have 2 entrepreneurs in a household. That is not a good idea. But I started working at Bunker Labs, and they are an awesome nonprofit. If any veterans or spouses have never heard of them, you should check them out if you're interested in entrepreneurship in any way or supporting entrepreneurship. And I ended up working with the Veterans in Residence program, which is awesome, also an awesome flagship program that they have. And I started realizing that there were all kinds of entrepreneurs like me that had no background in entrepreneurship or MBA or really thought they're going to end up in there, felt a call and end up doing something that they're passionate about. So I have a swimming background, as I mentioned. I used to be an assistant manager for a swim school in Northern Virginia. I loved it. The schedule was a little crazy. So with the birth of our second child, I said, I'm going to start with Bunker Labs and work remotely. So I started working with Bunker Labs, had so many people asking me every time they saw my kids in the pool where they learned to swim. And I was telling them that I used to be a swim instructor, and they would say, here's my number. I'm going to what's your number? I'm going to text you. I said, well, I'm not really offering swim lessons now. And they said, so, okay, just there's my number. There's 20 more of us. Just let me know when you want to coach. So I had a list of about 50 numbers over the past 2 years, and eventually had a friend. He had 4 kids, and he said, I know you've been thinking about coaching. Where are you standing on that today? I said, well, it's really been on my heart today. And he said, because my kids are on 3 wait lists and they cannot get swim lessons. And I would really like them to be able to learn how to swim. And he said, do you think you can help? And I just could not say no. So I said, yes, I think I can help. As soon as I said, I think I'm going to go and do this, Rich ordered me a vanity plate that said swim teacher on it for my license plate. And it came in before my LLC was set up, I think. I was in the process of setting up my LLC and getting everything registered. And I had this license plate that said swim teacher on the back of my car. So I said, well, I guess there's no turning back now. But I was really fortunate that it wasn't a difficult journey for me. I was scared. I wasn't sure if people would sign up. I had this list, but will they actually pay and want lessons? And I had tons of people. I think I started out with 50 to 70 swimmers my first summer, without any marketing, without a website, without anything. This is what happens when you're in a starving market, right? I happened to come into a market, there was not enough swim coaches. There's a huge national shortage. So as soon as somebody heard of me, people were calling and getting lessons set up. So I fell into it. I was, like I said, a very reluctant entrepreneur, but there was such a need. I just couldn't say no. So I was able to kind of step into it and just start running things. I didn't have everything set up. I'm still trying to figure that out now. Actually, there's a few things I'm like, probably should have set that up at the beginning, but I just was like, let me test it out. Let me make sure that I can actually do this. It can be profitable. And it was, and I said, okay, then I'll figure out everything else. So that's how I got into it.
Wow, that's an amazing story. And we love these origin stories. You know, your heart said yes, right? To swim classes
Yes.
and being that coach. I love the whole thing that your husband bought you
I'll
a
have to send you
placard.
guys a picture. Still, because
Yeah.
there'd be some days I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. And I'd look at my license plate as I was putting my equipment up and I was like, well, my license plate still says swim teachers. So maybe I'll give this another go for a little while.
Well, you know, you definitely found the void, and 50 to 70 in the first go round is pretty amazing and astonishing. And you said there's some challenges that you ran into or lessons learned about entrepreneurship. Let the audience know what those are, some of those that you'd like to share with us today.
Yes. So my first year, again, I worked at a place that helped veteran entrepreneurs. So I had a lot of advice that I could go off of. I didn't take all the advice, but I tried to take most of it. I'm somebody that is a little bit of a perfectionist, and I won't, if I try to do everything right, I just won't do it, especially in something like entrepreneurship. So I said, let me just do the most important things, which was setting up a bank account, getting the LLC, getting insurance, like all the things that I have to be able to operate. And I took the advice from people that said, just wait to do a website, spend a lot of money on social media and all of that. And I was very fortunate. Again, I didn't need that to get the customers I needed. A lesson that I learned that's a positive is referrals are more important. Word of mouth is more important than social media, website, all of that stuff. If you can have good referral network, you can save yourself a lot of time and money on trying to push out content and all of those things in the beginning. Once you get to a certain point, then you're going to need that to grow. So my first year, I just wanted to get through it. I set up those things. I did not have a bookkeeper. I'd used QuickBooks, but everything was fairly simple, so I could do it that way. I thought I could do it this second year. I decided I'm going to try to grow. So I've brought on 2 more coaches. Um, and then I brought on a social media manager. I brought on some other things that I was working on that I didn't do in the beginning because I had some money to spend. And I still did not hire a bookkeeper. Bringing on employees and people that you're paying and then spending additional money on various things. I did some sponsorships. I did all kinds of stuff. And very quickly, I was running out of time, not keeping an eye on my books. And when it came tax season this year, it was not good because everything was kind of a mess. It wasn't as straightforward as it was when it was just me doing very simple lessons, like no overhead. Now I had additional costs I was trying to factor in, trying to get money back for mileage. So it was a mess. We had some good friends at Intuit, and they told us, they said, before you do anything, make sure you set up your books right. Like that's the most important thing. And I tried to do that at first, but I lost sight of it in growing because it was so easy. And so I think a lesson is that just because something's easy at the beginning doesn't mean that it's always going to be easy. And you need to keep an eye on things, especially as you're growing. Starting scrappy in a business is different than when you're growing and trying to put all these different processes in place that bigger businesses have. It's a whole other animal. And because I was so fortunate in the beginning to not have to do all of that, I just didn't, I let my finger off of the pulse of what was going on, and very quickly it got out of control. So lesson learned is you do need a bookkeeper at some point. Maybe you don't need it right in the beginning, but as soon as if you're going to add an employee or a contractor or additional expenses than just basic back and forth interactions, you should have a bookkeeper, because otherwise you're going to have a huge headache and then you're going to cause yourself more time and pain. So that was a big lesson I learned. And just growing in general presents a lot of challenges that if you have it easy in the beginning, you discount it. And then you start realizing, oh my goodness, now I'm like a more of a real business owner. I have these real issues. And I probably, second thing is maybe talking to somebody like Bunker Labs or some of these places that offer free advice and mentorship before I started to put a growth strategy in place. Because you can kind of wing it when you're starting up a business. You really can't wing it when you're trying to grow and put extra money into your business. You really got to balance everything and know what you're doing.
That's a great share there. I and Vince both have heard this before. There are four key people you need: bookkeeper, accountant, lawyer, and a priest or pastor for those crazy days. So I tell you that these are lessons that really are valuable to those thinking or trying to think about entrepreneurship. So thank you for sharing that. Now you mentioned the growth piece. So what's on the horizon for Little Fishes Swim School?
Yes. So I wanted to separate this out, but one of the biggest strains, not only was I trying to add on coaches, but I had heard of this lady named Amy Porterfield. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of Amy Porterfield, but she's a digital course creator that's just passed the $100 million threshold for her business. She's been doing it for about 10, 15 years. And she runs something called Digital Course Academy. And I have a few friends that are course creators in addition to their normal coaching jobs or different things that they've got going on. And having that additional revenue stream is really helpful. So I was interested in it. I didn't know what that would have to do with a swim coach, but it occurred to me that we're having a lot of issues with young kids coming into the pool environment, trying to learn skills on top of adjusting to a big pool environment that can kind of throw them off. A lot of people, echoes, the water temperature's different, new faces. It's just a lot, which can be great for stimulation, maybe not so good for focusing on the skills. So I decided, I said, this would be a great opportunity to create a course. I was going to create a bathtub basics course. So, or bath time adventures, I think is what I ended up calling it. And it's going to teach parents how to teach their kids in the bathtub these first fundamental skills, because you can teach them how to hold their breath on cue. You can teach them how to go under the water, and you can teach them how to float on their back right from the bathtub. And if they get those three skills, coming into swim lessons will be so much easier, because it won't be, I'm trying to learn these things, are a little bit scary. I already know them. Now let's transfer them to the pool, and the rest of the lessons can move faster. So I decided I was going to launch this digital course, which is where a lot of my money went this year. And so I paid for this digital course academy. I started paying for things like Kajabi. I started paying for things like editing software, just all these digital tools that I was going to try to do. So that's something that is going to come to fruition. But it was, again, a much harder road than I thought it was going to be. Going from a skill set for in person to trying to do a digital course is two very different skill sets, which I knew. But I think it's going to be worth it, because I've done some research with the people I've talked to. And so we'll have 20 people that are going to go through this first cohort that's supposed to kick on March 20th. I may push it a couple weeks to the right, but it'll be coming out like right around the same time that this episode's coming out. So I've got this new course. So people who are not in North Carolina, where I live, can actually get some advice and some help from me and take this digital course where they can learn at their own pace in the comfort of their own home. And the children will learn these skills a lot faster. So then if they decide to do in-person lessons, they'll have a huge leg up. So that is something that I'm trying to do, and it's innovative. Nobody's really successfully done it. There's a reason why. It's very challenging, as I've learned. But this is kind of a new step that I'm taking in my business, is not only doing in-person lessons, but trying to teach online digital lessons as well.
That's phenomenal thinking there. And I definitely commend you for even going into the digital space. It seems like a heavy load up front, but as you mentioned, the rewards are going to be sweet in the future, because you're not just subjected to the pole and the location. Now, anybody with a bathtub around the world can literally join in and have these skill sets down to a science, because it's about skill sets and stimulation, as you mentioned. So love everything you're doing. Kudos to your company, we definitely know it's going to grow leaps and bounds. We'll see you in Forbes magazine in the near future, putting it out there. So let's talk about leadership. Let's transition now. What do you do, Ann, to continually strive and thrive in the leadership arena for your professional life?
So I tend to be a little bit more introverted. Um, and the thought of going to, if it's not a part of my job, specifically part of my job description, I shy away from big gatherings or trying to force myself to go out and meet people because it's intimidating. And then number two, it takes time away, right? You have to get dressed in a certain way for these different events and you have to go there and then you don't know how long you're going to be there. And so I didn't always do a great job of making that a priority. But I think it's something that's really, really important for leadership is making sure you get out and meet with other leaders and just people in the community, because it will help you to remember the things that you're strong at. And whenever you're able to share advice with other people, and it also will help you learn additional skills and widen up your network from these other people too, right? Like there's just so many people. It's like, what am I gonna, if I go to this event, I'm a swim coach, how many people are going to be able to relate to swim coaching and be able to help me? But I've been really surprised that stepping outside and talking to people in all kinds of different industries can really teach me a lot about the value that I can bring to other industries and other industries can bring to me. So I think that's something that's really important to remember. And my two swim coaches that I have are not, same for employees and contractors, people that are working for you. They don't have to be in the exact same industry. Sometimes it's great to have diversity. Um, they just bring different skill sets because neither one of my contractors that work for me were swim coaches, but one was an amazing mom that just knows how to work with kids. She's a phenomenal coach. And the other one is a middle school teacher. So she also has a teaching background, but does not like the water. Well, she likes the water, but she does not consider herself a swimmer at all. And we had to kind of I had to impart that to her, that that is not necessary to be a good teacher. You need to know how to do the basics, but you don't have to be an Olympic swimmer to be able to teach people water skills. In fact, sometimes being closer to them in your skill level and understanding how scary it can be to learn those new skills can make you a better teacher. So that's something that I've really learned, that I didn't think I was going to learn, but it's proven to be really important for making me a better leader, and a better business owner, is getting out and talking to other people, getting new ideas and perspectives, and bringing other people with different skill sets into my business to work for me as well.
And that's some great leadership approach there when you talk about knowing the skill set of your people and how to employ that with your current needs. So great job on that, and knowing how to put and position your people for success, not only for them, but for the business. And so, as you're sharing that, I know that you learned some things both in your time in service and now as you're in your journey in entrepreneurship. What advice did you receive that you would like to pass on to an emerging leader today?
So I think about this sometimes, and sometimes the best advice that I give to people I still struggle myself to fully implement, but I have to remind myself, and I'm like, do you remember how they told you this and you didn't do this and you still struggle to do it, but you wish you would tell other people about it? So something that's really simple, but really important is, that a leader told me a long time ago, was battle rhythm. When I was a young lieutenant and I was getting ready to go and be a platoon leader and then soon to be a company commander and all of these things, he said, the most important thing you can do is set a good, realistic battle rhythm. And battle rhythm doesn't have to be just for the military. Battle rhythm can be for anything. But I keep learning this lesson over and over again, where if you want to accomplish something, you can't just say, I'm going to launch a digital course this year, because I tried to do that with my course, was say, I'm going to launch a digital course and I have 6 months and I'll figure it out in 6 months. It'll just happen. It will not happen unless you really put realistic time blocks on there of, this is the time I'm going to be listening to this training. This is the time I'm going to be implementing this training. This is the time I'm going to be purchasing these things. Again, having a budget, but putting those time blocks so that you can see, is it realistic or not, what you want to accomplish in a given day or in a given week. And the second thing, the more recent thing I've learned, because in the military, I think battle rhythms are pretty rigid unless everything goes crazy and then everything has to change. But when you're in garrison or home station, they're pretty rigid. Like, you don't mess with the battle rhythm. Battle rhythm is as it is. In the civilian world, something that's nice is that I've realized I'll set out a schedule, and the things that are most important, I highlight in a different color that are not movable unless, again, there's some extreme emergency. You make sure you get those things done. But the other things that are not highlighted, if there's something else that I have some flexibility there. And I think giving yourself some grace and some flexibility and having some open space in the rest of your week, don't fill it up to the top, because that is unrealistic. Having a battle rhythm or a schedule that is filled to the brim, there is going to be something that happens, whether you have a stomach ache or a child sick. So give yourself some wiggle room in there, because if you have a day where you need to move some of those less priority things, they still need a spot. So you can move those into that white space. And if you operate that way, where you're getting the most important things done first, and getting most of the secondary things done, but leaving space to move them if needed, you can make so much progress that way. If you don't program everything, or if you over program, you're going to have some problems, because that's not realistic, and you're not be able to see what you're really going to be able to accomplish. So that's something, it seems simple, but it's easy to just not do it. And then you wonder what happened this week. You can also see what you accomplished too, because you can check off each thing that you did, and you can see, because you're like, what did I accomplish this week? And you go back and you can see all the things you did.
Wow, realistic, being intentional, having this schedule, having the color coded, the priorities is so important. And also, what resonates also with me is I heard your humility come out and your vulnerability, right? Because if you don't know, you definitely have individuals that can support or augment or mentor you in those arenas. So you know your own capabilities, as you mentioned earlier, as introvert, but you know the value as a leader to get out there in public. So you grow in these comfort zones. Love hearing that advice you gave. How about a most memorable leadership aha moment you've had, and I'd like to share with our audience today?
What is one of my most memorable aha moments? I've had a lot. But one of them is probably, oh, they're usually a theme, and I will have several moments, and then all of a sudden I have a real aha moment where I'm like, this is the third or fourth time that you keep doing the same thing. Like, it's time to try to let it go. I didn't like to admit it to myself, but like I said, after the third or fourth position that I took in the civilian world, and I see it in my military time, is that I have a tendency to want to do everything myself instead of delegating out. Um, because I don't, again, sometimes it's a time management issue. Sometimes it's trust, and sometimes it's time management. Sometimes I'm like, oh, it's going to take me an hour to explain how to do this correctly, and then I'm probably going to have to check it again. So I'm just going to do it myself, because I'll save myself time. Well, if you do that for every single task, then you don't have time, and you've not saved yourself anything. And I realized that it's something I've gotten a little bit better, but in my last role, and I still catch myself wanting to do it. Be like, I'll just do it. Like, I have people that say they can help me, but I'll just do it. And I have to check myself, and I have to say, listen, this is why you hired them, and they would like to have some extra hours. So give them the task. If they need help, they can come to you, but give them the task so that they have the opportunity to work on it. Because if you work on everything, then you can't work on the things that are most important. You can't work on those things that I highlighted, right? Because I'm trying to do these other things that are not really my job. But I really found that to be in my last role at Bunker Labs, especially. I had a really competent team, especially one young lady that was on our team. Shout out to Shelby. And I just wasn't always using, I would think I need to do it. And I was like, I have this amazing young lady who's capable of just about anything. She's proved it to me multiple times. Like, just let her have it. And if she has too much or if she needs help, she will come back to me, but give them that opportunity to do the task. But that was a big, because I had so many things going on. I was thinking, I can't do it all. And I was like, then why are you doing it all? You know, like, we were getting ready to take on this new project. It's not going to happen if I'm still doing all these things. So I had to shift it. And so that was something I realized that I was doing. And I still have to check myself now when I'm like, I'll just do it. I'm like, do I need to do it? Or can somebody else do it? Because holding on to things just doesn't benefit anybody.
Great share there, and I echo your sentiment on Shelby, as we both know her. But it's a great thing to realize, hey, sometimes I'm not allowing my people to grow because of my own thing, right? And then that's a huge thing and a huge aha moment for leaders to get to. So thank you for sharing that. Now, earlier you spoke about challenges in the business, challenges in transition, challenges, and little things that come up here and there. So, what are certain strategies that you use with yourself and now that you have a team to overcome or to deal with those challenges?
So, a challenge that I had when I transitioned out was, is my work meaningful and is it important? Um, I felt like once I got out of the military, is like, I've done so much during my 9 years in, like, there's no other job that's going to be nearly as rewarding as this. And I'm just going to find a job and I'm just going to do whatever just to make the money I need and just kind of try to take it easy. And I think a lot of people will think that sometimes. You have people who are going to come out and they're just going to work themselves to death and that's their plan. And then you have some people come out and say, I worked really hard. I just want to take it easy. I all the time would hear these NCOs saying, when I retire, I'm going to work at Walmart greeter. I would hear it so many times. And I was like, okay, yeah, that sounds great. If that's what you want to do, just hang out at Walmart. I That's realistic. I think you're so used to doing something that's important and of service, and you have this identity with the military that when you come out, just being a civilian and just doing something that you feel is unimportant is not realistic. It's not going to be rewarding, and it can cause you to have depression and anxiety, loss of identity, a lot of things. And I went through all of that, because I said, I'm fine. Like, I'm comfortable with myself. I'm comfortable with what I've done. But you feel this gap, this loss when you get out. And so then I felt like I needed to find something, and I didn't know. It's like, was this job even important? Like, what do I do? Like, am I important? Like, what? Just nothing seems important anymore. And so something I had to do was try to find a different calling, right? Which took me a little while. I felt it when I was the assistant manager at the swim school, but the schedule was crazy again. And so I said, well, maybe this isn't sustainable. But I got called back into it. And I still, some days I'm like, oh, like, I've got kids now, sometimes I just don't want to work at all. And I just want to take care of them. I've got all this homework to do with my 7-year-old. It's crazy the amount of homework they have in first grade. I don't know what's happening right now. But yeah, should I be at home or is this job important? And do I need to go? I still struggle sometimes, but whenever I'm in a job that I really enjoy, which I felt a lot of satisfaction in Bunker Labs too, but I really feel it when I'm in the water and I'm coaching. But whatever it is, that you need to find something that you're passionate about to help fill in that gap. And being around people is really important too. So what I was telling you guys about how I'm kind of introverted, not only do I get to do something that I love, being in the water, but it forces me to be around people. It forces me to be around parents. And the more I can be around people and they tell me, you did such a great job, the kids are doing such a great job, like it helps reinforce that I still have a purpose, I have a place to be, and I feel so great afterwards. Um, so something that was really hard for me transitioning out was finding that purpose and figuring out what my life was going to look like after. I did not expect that. I had people tell me that, but I said, no, that's not going to be me. And then it was me. And I really struggled. And I had a therapy and counseling. It's really important because they can help point that out. And I felt it was really silly to go to counseling about transitioning out of the military, but use it because she helped point out to me, she said, you've always had your identity given to you your whole life. You were an athlete in high school. You were an athlete in college. That was your identity. You joined the military. You're in the military. When you get out of the military, you no longer have your identity given to you. You have to find it. And that's a real struggle. So, finding your identity and finding something that you're doing work wise that's rewarding can really help with that. If that's just not possible work, find a hobby or find a nonprofit or a volunteer role or something that can fill in that gap. Because that was actually told to me several times in counseling about roles that I'm looking at taking, and would that provide that sense of purpose, or did I need to find it somewhere else? But how important that is. So finding something that's really important, because money can only go so far. And even if you're doing something that's not for money, you just finding something that gives you that sense of purpose is going to be really important when you're transitioning out. And maybe even if you're not transitioning out, but I just know for me as a military service member, that was something that I learned and I did not think I was going to learn.
And I have goosebumps right now, right? You spoke truth to power. Definitely talk about the identity crisis we go through when we leave the military. Some of us been in 9 years, 25, 26, right? And that whole identity is lost in that sense. And it's not about that paycheck. It's about that purpose that we're striving for and getting our identity back. And you have met the intersection of all three right now. So you have your identity, you have a paycheck, and you have your purpose. So congratulations, and thank you for sharing those pearls of wisdom with our audience. You're doing great things out there. And folks listening in, how do they get a hold of you, Ann, or your swim
Mhm.
school?
Yep. So they can just email me directly at Ann, ANN, at Little Fishies. And Fishies is with an IES, and then it's .co. CO. A lot of people put .com. It's just .co. And you can email me there, or you can also go to my website that's littlefishies.co as well. So those both are the same. And you can find links to socials in my email right from my website as well. And you can kind of see a little bit more about me, about the swim lessons. You can see that Bath Time Adventures course. And if you have any questions about anything or anything that I talked about, you can feel free to email me and reach out. Like I said, I've learned it's really important for me to connect with people and those connections. Even if you feel silly reaching out to me because you're like, Ann's busy, she doesn't have time, just reach out, because we can probably have a conversation and you never know, it could be life-changing. So reach out and check me out if you have any questions about anything. I'm happy to take time and reply to your email or set up a time to chat and call. I'm happy to be there.
Well, folks, we will have that as part of the video and show notes for you to get a hold of Ann and her company, and get her to teach your kids, and even some, whoever, I don't know the age bracket, but anyone, how to
Mhm.
swim and get familiar with water, because it really is a familiar thing. Folks, if you want to get a hold of us at the Leadership Void Podcast, the Leadership Void at gmail.com is where you'll send that correspondence. If you'd like to see a featured guest or a leadership topic covered, you'll do it by those means.
Yeah, we're just so excited to have Ann on our podcast. Thank you for everything you shared. And also thanks to our sponsors, Triple Nickel, FAVOB, and A Hero for Kids for being our sponsors. And Ann, we are welcoming you for our family here in the Leadership Void. And also, thank you for all you do out there in the community.
Thank you guys. It's a pleasure to be here.